Good afternoon. It's Barbara. I am late today. I apologize, but it's kind of lovely outside. I don't even know if I'll be in the sunshine today. I'll be in the shade. It's still sunny. Good afternoon. It's Barbara. I don't even have any caffeine because I've already had 2 cups of coffee and a cup of tea. Dennis is doing a little surgery on his pepper plant. It was leaning over, so we don't know what that's about, but it's a little lopsided, top heavy. That's what's doing it. So anyway, water. Yeah, you should harvest a couple of those. We'll have some chili or something. So, hey everybody, I didn't talk to you yesterday. I'm late because Christy's staying with us, and we started a conversation, which, she expected to go to her dad's about an hour ago, but we started talking, and you know how that is. I'm a talker. She's a talker. Dennis is a talker. So she's headed to her dad's for visit this afternoon and dinner, and she'll be back tonight. She leaves tomorrow for a all-day 16-hour drive back to Mississippi. It's a long day for her. But then she'll have Sunday to recuperate before she goes back to work. So we were talking, and so it got late. But you're used to late lately because I've been having YouTube problems. I don't expect that. I hope that doesn't happen today, because this will be like very late. So we had a very lovely service for Aura yesterday. Lots of her family came. Her mother was the oldest of 9, I think, or 10. So on her mother's side, she has lots and lots of cousins. In fact, one of her childhood companions was her aunt, who was only 2 years older than her. So her mother was the oldest. And Aura is the oldest of the cousins. And the youngest of the cousins is Sandy, who is the daughter of that aunt, Anne, who was her childhood companion. And Sandy's is like 60. So there's a 30 or more year range between all the cousins in that side of the family. And there are a lot of them. So a lot of people who love her came to this service. Turned out to be a lovely day. We had great weather. Well, to start at the beginning of the story, Aura's closest cousin in terms of relationship is Sarah Ann, and she is the cousin who arranges the cousin meetings that she was going to every month. She was, getting together. They called themselves the Unholy Trinity, and that's been going on for many years. Because she was driving down there for those when she was driving herself, which was, 4.5 years ago. So they've been doing this for quite a while to make sure that the cousins, and many or fewer cousins come, always the women. But Sarah Ann is in her, she's like 86, I think she said. So she was 8 years younger than Aura. And she is amputee, but she gets around fine, but she isn't a confident driver, and she doesn't live very super near her other cousins, and she, is the wrong direction for them all to go get her. One of her cousins, offered to come and pick her up, but it would have been a very long drive out of the way, and Sarah Ann didn't feel comfortable with that. But anyway, so she was planning not to come to the service, and I'm like, absolutely, that will not work. That's a no-go. So we went and picked her up, which added about an hour each direction to our trip. But it was so important to me that Sarah Ann be able to be there if she wanted to be there. I mean, if she wasn't coming for another reason, that okay, and I understand that, but it was because she didn't have a ride and she didn't feel comfortable driving herself. So we picked her up. So our day was long because of that. It was already an hour and 20-minute ride to get there, so it was a 2.5-hour ride each way. as it turned out. But we had a lovely drive, and we haven't spent a lot of time with Sarah Ann in the last few years, and so it was fun to have her in the car and hear her stories and whatever. So it was the four of us because Christy drove with us. And the weather was beautiful. So we weren't sure how it was going to be, because when Garland, so she's buried at the Indiantown Gap Memorial Park, because Garland was a World War II veteran, and he was buried there. And he was buried there in the fall of 2020. And so COVID was, regulations and things were still going on then, back in the old day when people pretended, to care about everybody. And it was outside. They had a pavilion and they did the service outside. And we weren't sure if that was because of COVID or it was typical, because we didn't know if there was a chapel there or something. Well, it turns out, no, they're always outside. They have a, covered place with like an altar-y kind of thing, and, just one set of benches, and then everybody stands around. The services are only a half an hour. And, they basically kicked us out and said, we're queuing up the next service. So get the hell out of here kind of thing. So it was outside, but it was a beautiful day, and that worked out perfectly fine. And that meant I didn't feel like I needed to mask because it was outside. So that was nice. And so the funeral director just welcomed everyone and, did one little explanation, please turn off your phone kind of thing. And then turned it over to the family. And I went first, thinking that if I went first, that would be good because, I'm a crier, and, so I read a passage that Kim found for me, or two, I think it was maybe two passages in one thing from 2 Timothy. And I read that, but I cried, and, so I did my best. And everybody said I did fine because they're lovely people. They're never going to tell me, that was really hard to understand because you're crying the whole time. But anyway, I just thought, I might be less emotional if I went first, but that didn't work out. And then Kim read, Kim is my sister-in-law, her youngest, and she read a couple of poems, very lovely poems that were very apropos of the moment. And then we had people talk, and I went first because try to get the ball rolling. I felt a little bit like the master of ceremonies, to be honest. And me, well, anyway, you may or may not know me, but I'm a real pro at funerals lately. So after Kim read her poems, and keeping in mind we only had a half an hour, we gave remembrances and, people talking about, her, and, I started and just said, when you think about it, it's really amazing. I'm standing up here on her daughter-in-law. She came and lived with us, and, I love her, and she was amazing, and, I couldn't live with anyone else, is what I said. Well, and then Dennis is like, what about me? And everybody started laughing, and I'm like, well, of course, Dennis, but, anyway, it was, very nice. And then her nieces and cousins, said things, and it was really nice. And then Kim sang a song based on the 23rd Psalm. And it was beautiful. Kim is a professional singer. She's not currently, I don't think she's currently being paid to sing anymore, but she was a professional singer, and she has an amazing voice. So she sang beautifully, and then that was the end of the service. And so most of us then repaired to the restaurant, which was right next door. It was very, it worked out beautifully. And they had a separate area that was kind of a little bit blocked off that could hold about 35 people. We had a little bit of overflow, so we probably had 40 people there for lunch, and it worked out really, really well. 6 or 8 people did not come to the lunch for one reason or another, but almost everybody came, and it was really nice. So we had about 2 hours of socializing with everybody, and it, you know, I went around. It was almost like I was like the bride at a wedding. I went to every table, greeted people, and there were many people there that I didn't know by sight because of all these cousins she had. So I got to meet everybody, and it was very nice, and the food was good, and people were happy and talking about Aura, and you know, reacquainting themselves with each other, and it was really very nice. And it didn't take us quite as long to get home as it took us to get there, because I kept getting behind all these really slow trucks going, and it was so frustrating. But we had left plenty of time, so we got there in time. But so it was a long day, and I felt pretty drained at the end of the day. You know, it's very emotional, and yeah. But it was a very lovely service, and everybody who was there, you know, and quite a few, you know, so considering she's 94, so there were no friends of hers that she grew up with, or, you know, that she, you know, went to church with, or, you know, they were all gone. So this was all her family, and it was really nice. It was really nice. And it was, you know, when Christy and I were talking about funerals and sort of the process and grieving, and, you know, because she and I have been through quite a few lately. And, yeah, of course, funerals are always for the people left behind, you know, and I think it was a good, you know, celebration of Aura's life. And yeah, I think we all felt good about it when it was done. It was really a lovely get together, and in a way it sort of winds up, you know, the last few years where, you know, we had her, we got to, you know, her in ways that, you know, I hadn't before, because, you know, when you live with somebody, you find out so much more about them. And then, you know, her struggles in the last few months have been so difficult, really difficult for her, and hard to witness. And so it feels like this was a joyous conclusion, you know, which is, you know, helpful for those of us who are left behind, you know. And yeah, so I was very grateful to everybody who came, and it turned out to be really, really lovely, really lovely. And I'm very late today because we were talking this morning, you know. It's fun to sit around and talk with Christy, you know. She's really smart and thoughtful and tuned into the world, and, you know. Yeah. So I guess that's all I wanted to say. I do have things to tell you tomorrow about my neurologist appointment and such, so I will do that tomorrow. But meanwhile, I'm going to go and get this up and going, since it's already 14 minutes of me nattering on. Dennis has fixed his pepper, so that's good. But he's going to have to harvest some of those jalapenos, or that plant isn't going to survive. And we haven't had very much rain in the last few days, so I might have to water my plants, because aren't they looking good? These are the ones I deadheaded, and apparently, you know, that's something that you need to do. So, but it's a little cool today. It's only going up to 70. I'm wearing my Archer sweater. And we didn't take the dogs for a walk. Oh, the dogs were by themselves all day yesterday. We left here about 9:15 in the morning, and we got home at 6. So now these two dogs are spoiled rotten because both of them came into our lives after we had already retired. So they did not spend, you know, every day 8 or 9 hours a day by themselves like our previous dogs had. So, but they did very well. I thought there might be an accident, you know, because, you know, Pearl's normal time to pee is like 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and she was in the house, but nope, they did great. But they didn't get their walk, so they will get a walk today. Dennis has his D&D tonight, his off-site D&D, so he's going to go do that. Christy won't be home till like 10:30, so I'll be by myself till then, and that'll be fine. Hopefully I'll be fine. So that's where we are. I will talk to you tomorrow. Christy leaves at the crack of dawn, so because she has such a long drive tomorrow. I'm not even sure if I'll be awake when she leaves, so I will kiss her goodbye tonight and give her a hug. So, but I did think of the Advent that I'm giving Rich. I ordered it yesterday. Foolishly, I ordered him a tea Advent. He drinks tea every day, so I ordered him a tea Advent. I got him beard oil last year, so I ordered him a tea Advent, and I foolishly had it sent to my house, although I think they're mailing it in the next couple days, so it wasn't foolish after all, because I was thinking, oh, I'm going to give these out at Thanksgiving, and everybody will have them at Thanksgiving, and then they'll be ready to go for December. And then I'm like, oh, rats, Christy and Rich don't come for Thanksgiving. But they are mailing it this week, so it would be get to their house way too early anyway. So I'll put it in the mail later. So I think I'm gonna get Jason beard oil, because he kind of like, oh, when he heard about Rich's beard oil last year. So maybe I'll find him beard oil this year. I already ordered. Maybe I told you I already ordered Allison's. She's getting cheese. But she's getting 12 days of Christmas of cheese. They're going to mail that to her the first week of December. She loves cheese, so I'm very tickled about that. So and I guess I'm going to get the girls' makeup. I asked Christy, and they love the makeup ones. So I'm going to get another set of makeup for the girls, but I did buy a Legos one for the family, because every day you open a little package of Legos and you put them together, and when they're done they'll have a Christmas scene, and I thought that would be fun for the family. So Christy is actually the hardest one, and I couldn't talk about it anyway because she watches my vlog, but so I need to put on my thinking cap for ideas for Christy. I got her a witches kit last year. She really liked it, but I don't know what I'm going to do this year, so I'll have to see. Anyway, so that's the news. Now you're all up to date. I'm going to go. Please take good care of yourselves. Please, please, please stay safe and stay sane. And thank you so much for your good wishes for Aura and her send off. I really appreciate it.